From requiring her staff to address her as the boss and firing an assistant for failing to provide her favorite snacks on set, let's dig into some extreme rules J.Lo demands from her staff or else. Jennifer Lopez has been accused of setting strict rules and making extreme demands from her staff, which has earned her a reputation as a certified diva. Some are so ridiculous, I had to triple check what I was reading to make sure I read it right. First, let's talk about her no eye contact rule. Lopez reportedly instructed staff at a luxury hotel and her own home not to make eye contact with her. An anonymous insider actually came out with a statement that read, "A friend of ours worked lighting backstage at one of her concerts. All of the workers were strictly instructed, do not look at Miss Lopez. There is to be no eye contact." Another person spoke out as well, saying, "I never heard anyone share a pleasant story about working with Jennifer Lopez." Another person spoke out as well, saying, "I never heard anyone share a pleasant story about working with Jennifer Lopez. One of my friends worked on set with her and the eye contact thing is true, lol." Another person said, "I knew people who worked at Mohegan Sun and they were instructed to totally avoid eye contact with J Diva. They still laugh about her to this day because far bigger celebs have appeared there that have been far more gracious and friendly." This, of course, has sparked outrage and has only further damaged her reputation. It's 2024, like in this intense social media era we're in, like it's so difficult to keep a positive image. So you would think she would work like a little harder to make sure allegations like this come with maybe 1 or 2 max stories from people claiming to have experienced this with her. I guess she's so unbothered to not tone down her diva-isms at all. J.Lo also is known to have strict rules around people talking directly to her. So it's bad enough that like no one can look her in the eye, but what does that matter if no one is allowed to even say hi, bye, or ask a simple question? Allegedly on a flight a while back, one flight attendant asked the star if she would like to drink something during her flight. J.Lo didn't even look at him. Instead, she turned to her personal assistant and said, "Please tell him I'd like a Diet Coke and lime." Now, you'd think in the comfort of her own home, she would loosen up a little bit. Nope. She apparently once had her house renovated and had the workmen follow ridiculous rules. Reportedly, they couldn't approach her or even start a conversation with her. And yes, you guessed it, they were also forbidden to make eye contact. Man, J.Lo like really does not like people looking at her. It's kind of weird considering her whole life and career revolves around people watching her. Jennifer also is known to have huge lists of demands she sends to the hotels that she stays at. So she always demands to have like the entire floor booked out for her, roses on her bed, and a very specific brand of candles. I think I demanded that maybe like once for my birthday. I still didn't get it. Ouch. She even once requested a private beach for a hotel that simply did not have private beaches. So like, huh? And like, get this, she requests diamond encrusted headphones always, like in order to draw out sounds, which I totally get, but do the diamonds like help with that? Or I don't know. She also allegedly demands that her entire dressing room always be fully white, including the sofas, and her staff basically suffer the most though, because their list of demands are so insanely long they have to be on call like 24/7 to cater to her every need. She demands that her grapes be seedless, her M&Ms plain, and only wants chocolate chip cookies. Her hotel rooms must be cooled to like a precise 80 degrees with 2 oscillating fans, and she always needs a private jet, helicopter, and custom-made speedboats. J.Lo has even gone on the record saying, "I'm looking for a hard worker, a worker that isn't afraid to work 24 hours a day." Her staff typically have so many tasks that they don't even have time to eat, and it's even alleged that as punishment, J.Lo has made her staff do like really unnecessary errands such as like fetch KFC buckets. That's just like so strange to me. Like, okay, sure, I'll go get a 10-piece and a Pepsi, no problem. Allegedly, she even took back large tips given to her staff if she felt they didn't like comply with all her rules and demands. J.Lo has gone on record saying she worked harder than anyone she knows. And while that may be true, maybe, it like still doesn't give her the right she thinks she has to believe she's better than anyone else or that no one deserves respect. Now, I am like a serious candle lover, so I can really appreciate J.Lo having a favorite scent or like only wanting to buy from one specific place. Like me personally, I'm not that picky, but if I was a millionaire, maybe yeah, I'd buy out like every Bath and Body Works, crisp linen or sun-drenched linen candle that they have on their shelf because I love it that much. But here's something really interesting. If you actually Google Jennifer Lopez candles, you get a bunch of results for the singer's own range of candles, but they're not actually available to buy. And she demands that every single hotel she goes to must include lime blossom or Jo Malone grapefruit scented candles only. JLo's arrival basically like paralyzes the entire hotel staff with fear, because if her suite isn't awaiting her with lime blossom or grapefruit scented candles, she will quite literally lose her mind. And yeah, just one of those candles actually retails for about $500, so excuse me while I cry and pour. And this next one is a little bit more ridiculous. So aside from her demanding that her like $50,000 a night suite has soft baked chocolate chip cookies, sour cream and onion chips, fresh fruit platters, and like very specific scented candles, JLo also demands she has a bowl of Planters sunflower seeds. Now that sounds like simple enough, right? No. Because if even one of those seeds lacks a shell, she will have a total meltdown. Every single sunflower seed that's in her bowl has to have a shell. And so she may actually throw the bowl at the wall or at the person that dished it out if it doesn't have a shell. So that's pretty scary. Now, I'm not a super walker, runner, etc. Like I don't like to hike, none of that stuff. And I quite honestly will pay for convenience if I can. So yes, I use ride sharing apps quite frequently, but JLo takes convenience to like a next level. And considering JLo seems to have an abundance of energy and stamina, you see all her workout videos, you would think like a 3-block walk would be manageable for her. Apparently not. Because when JLo was staying in London, she made 7 limousines escort her for a 3-block journey to lunch at the Dorchester Hotel. Now, like, this is so absurd to me because, and I have so many questions, because not her claiming she loves working out and walking, and that's what makes her happy, but then refuses to walk like a few blocks. I just don't get it. This next staff demand is equally as alarming as the other ones I've discussed. Of course, you know that most celebrities associate the color white with success. So we've already talked about how JLo demands like an all-white dressing room with white couches and white candles to match, but it's also been reported that she forces her entire entourage to wear white as well. And no, not just like shoes and bow ties. I'm like talking head to toe, covered in white everything all the time. Like she apparently just sends out memos to her entire staff that simply says, wear all white. And that's not just for tours, it's like for everything. She even gave birth to her twins in an all white fur coat. JLo is apparently a huge fan of sports hydration drinks like Gatorade. What she doesn't like, however, though, is not having them served to her at like the precise temperature she dictates. It's been reported that Jennifer's hotel room bar requirements include a strict setup of regular Coke, Diet Coke, caffeine-free Coke, lemon wedges, honey, and Gatorade. But the Smart Water and Fruit Punch or Orange Gatorade must be available at both very specific room and refrigerated temperatures. Okay, I know I mentioned the whole like plain M&Ms thing earlier, but I want to circle back to this one only because on a second thought, it has dawned on me just how funny this really is. Like, do you guys remember the movie The Wedding Planner with Matthew McConaughey? It was honestly one of my favorite rom-coms. I've watched it too many times to count, but if you haven't watched it, there's basically one scene where Matthew tells JLo that like brown M&Ms are healthier than the other colors because chocolate is already brown, and she takes that and like runs with it because you'll see her picking out every other color of M&M at some point in the movie. Well, it's like she took that advice in real life and also ran with it, because she apparently freaks out on staff if the wrong kind of M&M is left out and it's not just the plain ones in a bowl. Like, yes, she takes her nutrition very seriously, we know that, but like who's gonna tell her that every M&M in a pack has the same nutritional value as the plain brown ones? Now, if you're not already a bit turned off by all of her crazy demands, just hold on, I got another one for you. It is alleged that she insists her hotel rooms be playing music. Cool, no problem. But not just any music, like her music. And I get it, you like your own music, like you have some big tracks. I'm a fan of a few songs of her too, but like why are you wanting to hear your songs only? I just don't get it. And I just know a speaker hates to see JLo coming. And this request is said to be mandatory, like no exceptions. So I just have like a very vivid image in my head of JLo like sitting in her all white suite, Jo Malone candles going, plain M&Ms in a bowl, room temperature Gatorade in hand, while she like slightly nods her head to her like hit single Let's Get Loud or something. Starting off with the no eye contact rule, staff members are reportedly forbidden from making direct eye contact with Beyonce or Jay-Z. It was reported that when Beyonce was in Jamaica alongside her husband for a video shoot, the Jamaican staff that were hired for the shoot were deeply dismayed when they were instructed by Beyonce's management team that the rules included not looking at Beyonce. The hired staff were happy for the opportunity, but many said upon leaving the shoot, they were no longer fans of the singer. I'm not surprised. Next up, specific food requests. Beyonce allegedly demands a specific type of water with precisely 7.4 pH levels, and it was reported that she needed $900 worth of titanium drinking straws for it, and it had to be served at exactly 21 degrees. There is also a rule that Beyonce's chicken must be seasoned with garlic powder or she just won't eat it. She will only eat it if it's baked and seasoned with garlic powder, a little bit of salt, black pepper, and cayenne pepper. Now the trick, apparently, is to heavily season her chicken and only give her the breast, legs, and wings. Now, on the side of her plate, staff members also have to include some broccoli, spinach, and green beans. So this girl like really loves her greens. Aside from her pH water, she will also only drink Pepsi products, which is probably why we've only seen her do Pepsi commercials. Staff also have to remember to make sure she has lemon wedges and hot tea. As long as the staff doesn't forget to chill half her water bottles, everything should be fine. Confidentiality agreements. This shouldn't really be a surprise, as most celebrities will have this in place, but Beyonce and Jay-Z tell all their staff that they must be able to, quote unquote, keep a secret. All staff are required to sign NDAs to maintain the couple's privacy, and not following that rule could actually have very serious consequences. The staff are also not allowed to complain about their role or their personal life in any shape, way, or form. Now, Jay-Z has told employees and staff that while they are on the job, there is not to be any talk about their personal lives. While working, everything should remain strictly business. It was reported that he even said, "There's too much work to focus on and you'll never get anywhere by complaining." They have both made it very clear that they will cut you off immediately, staff, friend, or even family. Another strict rule in place for their staff is that staff members are not allowed to work with Kimye, being Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. Now, a few years ago, drama ensued between Jay-Z and Kanye. The wives seem to somehow get in the mix too. Now, both rappers have been known to go back and forth at times, but up to this point, they had always mended their relationship. That is not exactly what happened here though. Jay-Z sees Kanye West as a younger brother, but once he crossed the line and brought Bey into it, Jay was not having it. Kanye got on stage during one of his performances and basically made a shout out to Jay-Z saying he should call him after all this time. Then he went further by calling out Beyonce for not performing beside him at the 2016 MTV Video Music Awards. Since then, the couple has had nothing to do with Kanye West and his wife, Kim Kardashian, well, ex-wife. Although Beyonce and Kim have never been friends, throughout the years, they've both been accused by the media of throwing shade at each other. When Kanye proposed to Kim Kardashian, the Carter family were nowhere in sight. Slowly, they began to separate themselves from Kimye, and they expect staff to do the same as well. Sometimes celebrity staff will work with multiple celebrities, and Beyonce and Jay-Z don't mind as long as it's not Kim and Kanye, or any other celebrities they may feud with. Another strict rule in place is that all staff must read and sign the ultimate nanny rulebook for their children. Beyonce has a specific rulebook that she makes each nanny read. By the way, there are 6 nannies for the twins and 2 for Blue when needed. This rulebook includes how she wants her children to be taken care of. Beyonce, of course, wrote the rulebook herself. Why would she follow anyone else's advice, right? A few of the rules and duties of the nannies include mowing their lawn, putting their purses on the floor, not countertops, which honestly would be a deal breaker for me because if you know anything about superstitions, you know that is like really bad luck. And also they have to take out the trash. Now, for the twins, each nanny works in a span of 8-hour shifts around the clock. When Blue Ivy was younger, she required 3 nannies as well, but now that she's older, they've employed 2 instead of 3. And to branch off of this, Blue Ivy must have 3 bodyguards for school, no questions asked. So Blue Ivy's entourage includes 2 drivers and 3 bodyguards. And when it comes to the twins, they are not allowed to nap to music. Beyoncé feels the music, even if played quietly, could distract their sleep and cause them to have bad sleeping patterns. And speaking of nannies, another strict rule is the bilingual rule. All nannies have to be bilingual, preferably in French. Now, according to a source who's in with the Carter family, Beyonce and Jay have said that the nannies they employ have to be happy to travel the world with the Carters. I am mad at that, to be honest. I mean, who would be, right? And the other main stipulation, though, is that they have to be bilingual. This source said they want a French speaker for a number of reasons. The family have a real connection with France, and Beyonce's nephew Jules is a French speaker because his dad is French. Now, on Larry King Live back in 2007, before Blue Ivy was born, Beyonce was asked if she spoke another language since she recorded some songs in Spanish. Beyonce said, "I sure don't. I don't speak French either. I learned it phonetically and we took one sentence at a time. I just spoke the lyrics over and over and over again and then put the melody to it." Beyonce made it clear that she wants Blue, Rumi, and Sir to excel in life. So being bilingual is one of the dreams she has for all of her children. Now, another big rule is absolutely no photography. Staff members are not allowed to take photos of Beyonce, Jay-Z, or their children, whether they're at home or not. Beyonce has also restricted photography at her concerts and on her tours, including banning professional photographers and limiting the photos media outlets can actually use. Back in 2013, Beyonce banned professional photographers from her Mrs. Carter Show World Tour. Instead, her management company provided media outlets with a limited number of pre-approved photos taken by her tour photographer. Now, this led to news outlets relying on amateur and paparazzi photos, which were often taken from a distance and in very poor lighting. Some photographers have gone on the record to say that Beyonce's no photo policy is threatening the First Amendment, and the National Press Photographers Association had a problem with that, saying it seems these days everyone is trying to control their own content. Eventually, if you have all the artists doing this, everything is going to be more controlled and less free. The whole idea of photography is seeing is supposed to be believing. Of course, Beyonce nor any of her representatives responded when asked questions about the policy, and it's still unclear whether or not news outlets actually have to pay to use the 4 to 10 photos available after each of her shows. But let it be made very clear, not one of those photos of Beyonce will show even one hair out of place or even a blink in her eye, okay? So moving on, we have the workout rule. Now, Beyonce's staff are absolutely not allowed to bother her while she's working on her body. Beyonce's fitness routine was very demanding after she had the twins. As soon as her body healed up, it was off to the gym, sometimes 3 times a day. Now, a source told E! News that she did Soul Cycle several times a week as soon as she got the clearance after her C-section. Now, she also worked out with a trainer at home doing cardio, intervals, and weights. Now, this source actually went on to explain all of her meals and diet were overseen by a private chef on staff who travels with them and prepares everything specifically for her. While Beyonce is busy getting her body back, her nannies are only allowed to bother her if it's an absolute emergency. If they bother her or disrupt her workout session, consequences could include a fine or worse, like dismissal. And to piggyback off of that last one, another strict rule is that all staff or their children must stay in shape since their kids have demanding schedules. Now, this one isn't very surprising, and this isn't a, discriminatory thing or anything like that. It's just a preference Beyonce has, knowing that the women pushing through crowds with her will have to be able to keep up. It's very common for nannies to go MIA due to health issues, and that is something Beyonce just can't have happen. It takes so much time to find, process, and acclimate a new hire, so it's best that each caretaker is in its prime or in their prime health. Now, though Beyonce has 6 nannies looking after Rumi and Sir, they are with her all day, so while she's busy, she can still be a part of what's happening. Anyone who isn't in tip-top shape or excellent health won't even be considered for the job. I mean, honestly, each nanny gets paid like a minimum of $100,000 a year. I would stay in shape for that kind of money too, am I right? On the topic of money, it's no secret the Carters have a lot in the bank, and while they pay their nannies and staff pretty well, it is reported, however, that bonus money must be earned. Jay-Z gave all of his employees $50,000 right before Christmas one year. But that's not all. Jay-Z also gave them Christmas gifts as well. Combined, it's even reported that throughout the year of 2013, the couple gave staff up to $4.6 million in bonus money and gifts. If they live the lavish life, of course, maybe they want their staff to be a part of that too. Now, Beyonce and Jay-Z have 80 employees across the board, so that's a lot of staff, so of course a lot of money too. But employees are, however, expected to follow every single one of the rules, no matter how ridiculous they may seem. If even one is not followed, you can expect to not get a bonus. You may not get canned or fired for it, but you won't get something extra around Christmas time or at the end of summer.
Coming at number 10, Kourtney Kardashian. Now, although Kourtney may seem like one of the more rational Kardashians, this story from her former nanny is a bit nuts. A nanny who had previously worked for the reality show star exposed Kourtney and her ridiculous requests. While speaking with Star magazine, the ex-nanny revealed that Kourtney demanded to never be called by her first name. Instead, she preferred to be called Madam, not Ma'am, but Madam. In the interview, she says, "She asked me to call her Madam at all times. I once slipped up and called her Kourtney and she threw a hissy fit. I never made that mistake again." Eesh. Coming at number 9, Lady Gaga. Back in 2013, Lady Gaga's former assistant Jennifer O'Neill went after the singer, claiming that she was taking her to court for unpaid overtime wages. Within the court documents, Jennifer said that she had to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, adding that she even had to frequently sleep in the same bed as Gaga because she never had her own hotel room while they were on tour together. Plus, it was faster if Lady Gaga needed anything in the night. According to Gaga, though, she claimed that Jennifer was suing her for money that she didn't earn. Jennifer was asking for nearly $400,000 in overtime pay and further damages after having to be at the singer's beck and call from 2009 to 2011. Her annual salary for this job was $75K, and in the deposition, Lady Gaga said that she didn't deserve a penny more. Although something must have happened because later court filings say that they had come to a settlement outside of court. In number 8, Christian Bale. Harrison Chung worked as Christian Bale's personal assistant for over a decade and even wrote a book called Christian Bale: The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. And the stories he tells about the star in this book are absolutely insane. In one portion exposing Bale, he says, "If Christian was away filming on location, I would take care of his 5 pets, along with stray possums in the backyard as a special request. I would do anything from sniffing Christian's armpits for BO right before he hit the red carpet to making emergency sock runs if Christian was all out of clean ones. Sometimes duties were as exciting as traveling to film festivals and as dull as watching Christian surf in case something needed to be done on shore." I just can't get over the fact that he actually hired someone to sniff his armpits. Harrison would later tell the Daily Mail that it took 5 years of therapy to get past the post-traumatic stress he had from working with Bale. In at number 7, Scott Rudin. You may have never even heard of Scott Rudin before, but he actually holds the unofficial crown of being Hollywood's most feared boss. Forever he was upheld as being this legendary producer of The Truman Show and many other big films, although his revolving door of former assistants revealed some pretty wild stories about him. Apparently he had as many as 250 assistants from the year 2000 to 2005, one of which was fired for bringing him a bad breakfast muffin. What's crazy here though is that even as his ex-assistants blasted him in the press for how terrible he was, he just embraced it and claimed to have an unforgiving management style. Although that certainly does not excuse the accounts I read about assistants being overworked, dealing with his random fits of rage, and having the occasional object tossed at them. Coming at number 6, Ben Stiller. Usually when we see Ben Stiller on screen, he's playing this nice guy, but as we all know, celebrities are usually quite different in person. And according to a former assistant that worked with Ben during his time on the set of Zoolander, Ben can be quite bizarre. On his first day working, this assistant was told all of the do's and don'ts of handling Ben Stiller's every need. In fact, there were even specific instructions about how he liked his iced tea. According to them, it had to be unsweetened, and then it had to be sweetened with 1.5 packs of Splenda inside and 16 ounces of unsweetened tea on top of that. The assistant recounted one time that they brought Stiller his iced tea in a paper cup, and then he was told to get a glass, put more ice in the glass, then pour the iced tea from the paper cup into the glass. Then upon obliging to this request, Ben took one sip and said, "What the hell is this?" And he was referring to the condensation that had formed on the glass, which would have been avoided had he just drank out of the paper cup. But regardless, he asked his assistant to continually wipe off the condensation for him. Apparently Ben doesn't like it when his hands get wet, because if he has to shake someone else's hands, then they might think that he has sweaty palms, and that's a no-go apparently. And at number 5, Charlize Theron. According to an interview Charlize Theron's former assistant did with Star Magazine, the assistant was not allowed to speak or even look at her. Then one of her former nannies also revealed that if she had anything to communicate with her boss about the kids, she actually had to just write it down in a diary. Not exactly the best way to inform a parent about what's been going on with their own kids. Hopefully she put in some exception in case of emergencies, because I could see a number of ways that this terrible rule could go wrong. She can't even say that she just doesn't have time to talk to them, because if this diary thing is true, then she has to find some time to sit down and read the odd journal entries from her staff. I just picture Charlize Theron sitting there and just, "Dear diary, I hate my boss." I wonder if anyone's actually wrote that. They should. Maybe on your last day. I guess that would be your last day if you wrote that in there. Either way, let's move on to the next one. In at number 4, Jennifer Lopez. Believe it or not, but Jenny from the block has had an awful history of treating employees of hers poorly, from chauffeurs getting tired of driving her around without proper meal breaks, to people like her makeup artist being shunned after accidentally leaking details about her marriage to Mark Anthony. Although nothing compares to what her former assistant told Gawker about. According to the assistant, this is what J-Lo said she required from them. The person has to be graceful under pressure, have thick skin, and be resourceful in foreign countries. You'll be on call 24/7, you have to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. You have to know when J-Lo has her snack time, she won't say she's hungry, and you're expected to have food waiting. Wasn't that nice? In number 3, Naomi Campbell. This was one of those more infamous cases of a celebrity being exposed by their former assistant, and it still is actually a reputation that Naomi lives with today. In 2007, Campbell pleaded guilty to attacking her maid by hitting her in the head with a cell phone. As a result, she had to take anger management classes and serve a 5-day sentence of community service, plus cover her maid's hospital bills. The assistant also claimed that she grabbed her by the arms and threw her down on a couch. And during an interview with Elle magazine in 2013, she discussed this and said that she regretted losing her temper. Naomi says, and I quote, "I'm never gonna get away from it. It's part of my history. I was remorseful and regretful. I've served, I did that time, and I never want to be in that position again." Coming number 2, Soulja Boy. A report came out from The Guardian that said Soulja Boy, the rapper, was being sued by his former personal assistant. In the lawsuit, she accused him of doing a number of heinous things, from locking her in a room to subjecting her to all kinds of different abuse. The 30-year-old musician is alleged to have locked the unnamed female assistant in a room for 3 days and assaulted her repeatedly during that time. Along with that, the claimant is also alleging that he abused her physically, verbally, and even would withhold her paychecks. The woman began working for Soulja Boy in December of 2018, and according to her, she was expected to not only be available at all times, but also to cook, clean, chauffeur, style his hair, and perform personal assistant tasks for him as well. In return for her working 20 hours a day and 7 days a week, he had promised her a payment of $500 per week. The lawsuit also states that after a month of working for him, he began sending unsolicited and inappropriate photos to her. Not exactly the best kind of boss, but our number 1 spot isn't either. Coming in at number 1, Harvey Weinstein. Now, we all pretty much know about the heinous things that Harvey Weinstein did, so finding out that he also mistreated his former assistant shouldn't come as that much of a shock. Back in May of 2020, Harvey's former assistant broke her non-disclosure agreement to discuss how this disgraced movie producer had treated her. First off, while she was working as a new assistant at Miramax, she said that she and Weinstein were discussing film productions and scripts in a late-night meeting when she declined his request for a massage. He then allegedly pushed her onto the bed before she managed to escape the room. She then had to keep this a secret for over 20 years because of that NDA that she had signed. All staff at Miramax that signed that NDA had the fear of God put into them so that they never reached out for emotional support. While speaking with the press, she said, "We were told by our own lawyer, not even just Harvey's lawyers, that we must treat this time as a black hole. It said very specifically in our contract that we can only refer in very general terms to having worked for Harvey, and we can never talk in any detail about any aspect of our life during this time ever to anybody. Not just the media and lawyers and doctors and therapists, but there was also a clause about friends and family. It locked us out of any type of emotional support whatsoever." Absolutely disgraceful. Unreal. Well, he's serving his time now.
Now, no Virgos are allowed to work with her. And yes, I'm talking about the zodiac sign, which is just insane, right? Now, how do we know this? Well, someone spilled the beans. Heather Morris got her big break on Ryan Murphy's Fox series Glee, but before that she was a backup dancer for celebrities, and she had quite a run-in when auditioning for J-Lo. In 2022, she said Jennifer Lopez held an audition for dancers for one of her tours, and this was years ago. She said during an appearance on the Just Sayin' podcast. "Most of the time at dance auditions, you're not getting paid. You've been been there since 10 a.m. and you're auditioning until 6 p.m., she said. People judging you the whole time. And according to Heather, who said she heard the story from multiple people, J-Lo came in at the end of the long day and thanked the dancers. She walked into the room and said, "Thank you so much, you guys have worked so hard. By a show of hands, if there are any Virgos in the room, can you just raise your hands?" And J-Lo apparently saw the raised hands, whispered to her assistant, and dismissed the Virgos. They had to leave after a full day of auditioning, Heather said. Now, what does J-Lo have against Virgos? Who knows, but there is one Virgo that J-Lo, who is a Leo, definitely didn't get along with, which was her ex-husband Mark Anthony, who was born on September 16th. So hey, if you're a Virgo, here's some advice. Don't try to work for J-Lo because you will not get the job. Now, another rule that has to do with Mark Anthony is that J-Lo will not have any female flight attendants on her flights. They all have to be men. Why? Well, apparently Mark Anthony cheated on her with one of their female flight attendants, so J-Lo banned them. She hates flight attendants because her ex-husband Mark Anthony had an affair with one when they were married, an anonymous source has revealed. Now, several corporate flight attendants came forward and revealed that Jennifer does not allow female associates to work on her flights. A private attendant confirmed this rule, saying, "J-Lo won't let female flight attendants work. She brings her own male attendant who is not a flight attendant, but a personal assistant." Then another stewardess had this to say: "After completely taking out everything in the drawers to fill them with all her preferred items, I was told I had to fly home because she didn't want a female flight attendant, only to have to come back and Uber to the airplane and reset my items because it was a one-way flight." Now, she also hates it when service workers look or speak to her. One time, a flight attendant offered her a drink and she refused to acknowledge him. She said to her assistant, "Please tell him I'd like a Diet Coke and lime." Then in 2012, reports surfaced that she demanded that staff working for her make no eye contact or speak with her. While having work done on her San Fernando Valley home, she demanded that none of the helpers, drivers, or contractors have any interactions with her. In 2022, a girl named Kayla posted a TikTok saying that her dad worked for a company that J-Lo would hire for drivers, but apparently he had heard so many bad stories about the star that he never wanted to be her driver. It was said that J-Lo does not allow the drivers to look or talk to her, and she's also so strict that if the driver looks through the rear view mirror and makes eye contact with her, she will freak out. Not to mention, she has a crazy rule that her luggage cannot touch the ground. J-Lo demands that her staff make sure that everything in her dressing room is white. Yes, it seems like whenever J-Lo goes and performs, she needs her backstage area to be completely white and has a team to come in and make the changes for her. In 2022, speaking on her podcast, The 90s with Danny Minogue, the former X Factor judge shared a story of J-Lo making this crazy demand before performing on Top of the Pops over 20 years ago. According to Danny, the American entertainer apparently insisted that her entire dressing room was redecorated so that everything was white, even going so far as to refuse to go on stage if her wishes were not fulfilled. "I was told everything had to be white, including the sofa. I asked to go in and see the room as she wasn't there in that moment. I was lapping up every detail," Danny said. "All I could think was, girlfriend is covered head to toe in body makeup. How do you sit on a white couch?" Danny recalled with a laugh. Now, it was then reported that while attending a recording session for the African AIDS charity single What's Going On in 2002, J-Lo submitted her standard tour rider, which demanded a 40-foot trailer furnished in all white from top to bottom, flowers, tablecloths, drapery, couches, candles, everything. Now, a leaked document also revealed that J-Lo's spaces must be painted entirely white, with white linens, drapes, furniture, and even candles, as long as they're Joe Malone's grapefruit or lime blossom scents. Now, why she chooses the color white, no one really knows, but it's so specific and she throws a fit if this isn't followed. Now, this isn't the only demand when it comes to her dressing room, as in 2010, it was reported that she wanted hanging mirrors for her makeup to be at a specific angle. "You mirror what the world mirrors you" remains one of Jen's most famous quotes, but what that means in this context, I don't really know, but it is just really strange. Then there's also the fact that JLo doesn't want her staff to have their own lives. She wants them to be at her disposal at all times. One famous example of this was when she had her twins Max and Emmy. She was looking for a nanny to take care of both kids, and while this is a lot of work in the first place, JLo wanted the nanny to work 16-hour days, which is honestly just outrageous. An insider told the National Enquirer, normally people who make huge sums of money and have loads of professional and social obligations hire a nanny for each child, especially for newborns. But it is as if Jennifer expects one nanny not to only take care of both twins, but to work 16-hour days, 7 days a week. Wow. Yeah, now unsurprisingly, the first nanny she hired left after just a week of working for her. Then the source said they hired a second nanny who was wonderful with the twins, but she could not take working such long hours without a break. So she quit after just a week as well. Now again, I can't really blame them as that is an insane schedule. Not to mention that her staff have to make sure everything she wants when she's away from home, she gets. Now JLo has very specific food and beverage notes for the hotels she stays at. JLo's personal suite must include a coffee maker, hot water pot, toaster, microwave, and an oven, all set up before she arrives. She also wants her own plates, coffee mugs, thermos cups, and silverware. Not to mention, she must have at least 2 rooms, so one could be her wardrobe room, which must have 12 bottles of water in it. In January 2016, when she started her residency in Las Vegas, she signed a 3-year contract to perform roughly 120 shows a year at Planet Hollywood's Access Theater. Now she made $350,000 for each show and performed 3 times a week. But this wasn't enough for her and she had more demands. She requested 3 penthouse suites all next to each other, she requested a playground in her suite for her kids, and she also demanded a personal laundry service and for each room to have its own on-call butler wearing all white. The housekeeping staff had to sign full disclosure agreements to ensure they didn't spill any of her secrets, and she requested brand new toilets for the backstage area, and then again an all-white dressing room.